I remember the sterile smell of the hospital, as if it had seeped into my skin. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above, and the faint hum of machines created a rhythm I couldn't escape. I held my husband's hand, or at least what I thought was his hand, waiting for the doctor to speak. My chest was tight, my stomach a knot of dread and denial. When the words finally came, cancer, it felt like the world tilted and my knees nearly buckled under me. I swallowed hard, trying to focus, trying to hear anything other than the word that would change my life. I expected him to squeeze my hand, to whisper something comforting. Instead, he pulled his fingers away just enough that I noticed. His eyes weren't on me. They were calculating, distant. Then I heard it, low, almost casual. She could die. I just need the insurance money. Time slowed. My blood ran cold. My heart didn't beat. It thudded with disbelief. I stared at him, searching for the man I married, the man who promised to love me through sickness and health. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I wanted to scream, to push him away, to tell him to leave, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was breathe, taste the metallic tang of fear, and wonder how the person I trusted most could say something so cruel while my world was collapsing around me. The nurse glanced at us, expecting tears, support, a soft hand on my shoulder. She got none of that. I sat there numb, watching the man I loved, or thought I did, calculate my death like a financial ledger, and the weight of betrayal pressed down harder than the diagnosis itself. The ride home was silent except for the occasional cough from me, the kind that made my chest ache with exhaustion. I kept my hands folded in my lap, gripping the thin hospital blanket, trying to make sense of the words I'd heard. Insurance money. My husband had said insurance money, as if my life were a contract, a line item, a calculation he could profit from. When we walked through the front door, the familiar smell of our home should have offered comfort, but it didn't. Everything looked the same. The framed photos, the living room rug, the soft hum of the ceiling fan. But my perception had shifted. I saw our life differently now, every memory tinged with suspicion. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice casual, like he hadn't just said the most horrifying thing imaginable. I froze. His question felt like an insult. I forced out a hollow laugh, trying to mask the storm inside. "I'm fine," I said, but the words tasted bitter. He went to the kitchen, probably thinking I would follow. I didn't. I stayed in the living room, clutching the blanket, listening to him move around, imagining him picking up a glass, setting it down, calculating. Every mundane motion became sinister, every gesture a reminder of his words. Then I realized something. I couldn't trust him. Not now, not ever. And as much as fear coursed through my veins, a spark of anger flared inside me. My body might be sick, my life threatened by something I hadn't asked for, but my spirit was not his to bargain with. I pulled my phone from the coffee table and stared at my contacts, my fingers trembling. There were friends, family, doctors, lawyers. Someone had to know. Someone had to protect me from what I couldn't yet face alone. That night I lay in our bed, listening to him snore softly beside me, and I realized the war had begun. Not against cancer, not yet, but against the person I thought would fight beside me. The next morning I woke before him, the sunlight slicing across the bedroom in sharp, uninvited lines. I watched him sleep, trying to reconcile the man in front of me with the words I'd heard the day before. I wanted to scream, to shake him awake, demand answers, but I didn't. Calm had to come first. Strategy. I made coffee, the bitter aroma filling the kitchen, grounding me. Each sip was a reminder that I was still here, that I still had control over something. My body, my mind, my choices. I drafted a mental list. Insurance company, lawyer, friends I could trust. No one could manipulate me if I stayed 2 steps ahead. When he finally emerged wearing his usual business casual uniform, he smiled at me, oblivious or pretending to be. 'Feeling okay?' he asked again. I let him think I was fragile, weak. wasn't. Not yet. I need to talk, I said, voice steady, eyes locked on his. He raised an eyebrow. About what? About what you said yesterday, I said, slow, deliberate. The words hit him like ice. His confident posture faltered for the first time. Insurance money. About me dying. For a moment he said nothing. Then he laughed, nervous, sharp. I didn't mean it like that. I was joking. I studied him. The lie tasted bitter on his tongue, and I let it hang in the air. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just waited. You weren't joking, I said finally, and I can't stay here pretending I trust you. He opened his mouth, tried to protest, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked out the door, leaving him standing there, his confidence cracking, his world suddenly uncertain in the same way mine had been. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to reclaim myself, piece by piece. And as I walked down the street, the wind hitting my face, I realized something vital. Fear might be part of this journey, but it would never be my master. I spent the afternoon at my sister's apartment, the one place in the world that felt safe. The smell of her cinnamon candles and fresh coffee grounded me, a small comfort against the chaos of the past 24 hours. I hadn't even realized how tense I'd been until she pulled me into a hug, holding me so tight I could feel my panic begin to unravel. I don't know what to do, I whispered, voice cracking. He said he'd benefit if I died. My sister's eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she held me closer. You're not alone. We'll figure this out. Together. We sat at her kitchen table, papers spread out, phones at the ready. Lawyers, support groups, insurance policies. I had to understand everything, claim everything. Every detail mattered, because now my life wasn't just about fighting cancer. It was about protecting myself from someone who was supposed to love me. She didn't judge. She didn't panic. She just listened, offered advice, made calls while I sat there, absorbing the reality of my situation. I felt a strange mix of vulnerability and power, the kind that comes when the world has tried to break you and you refuse to be broken. By evening, I had a plan. I would keep living in my house for now, but all major decisions would be documented, all communication recorded. I wouldn't let him manipulate or intimidate me. And most importantly, I promised myself something fierce. I would survive, not just the cancer, but him. That night, I lay in bed at my sister's apartment, the city lights flickering through the window. I closed my eyes and felt the anger, the fear, the betrayal, but also the fire. For the first time since hearing those words, I felt a spark of hope, not because he had changed, but because I had. The next morning, I returned home. The air felt heavier now, each step toward the front door a test of resolve. I wasn't just walking into a house. I was walking into a battlefield. He was in the living room scrolling on his phone, pretending nothing had changed. I stopped in the doorway, letting the silence stretch. We need to talk, I said, my voice calm but sharp. He looked up, startled. About everything. About what you said. About this life we've built, I said, each word deliberate. I need the truth. Do you care about me, or were you thinking about insurance money? His face paled, the confident mask slipping. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see it. The calculation, the realization that I wasn't afraid anymore. I didn't mean it, he stammered weakly. I shook my head. Don't lie to me. I heard the words. They were clear. I need to know where we stand. He looked down, shame flickering across his features. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything. I didn't know how to handle it. I studied him, every twitch, every hesitation. I had seen fear in the mirror, but I had also seen strength. I'm sick. I need you to fight with me, not calculate me. If you can't do that, then you need to leave. The silence stretched again. He finally nodded, defeated, and for the first time, I felt in control. Not because he admitted the truth, but because I had set the terms. My life, my fight, my rules. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. I wasn't his to bargain with. I was still here. I was still me, and no amount of betrayal could take that away. The next few days were a whirlwind of calls, emails, and documents. Lawyers, doctors, insurance agents. They all became part of my new reality. Each signature, each phone call, each confirmation of policies felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been threatened. I also leaned on friends I hadn't spoken to in months, reconnecting with people who reminded me of who I was outside of marriage, outside of sickness. Their voices, full of concern and encouragement, became a shield I didn't know I needed. At home, he kept his distance, avoiding confrontation as if the walls themselves had shifted. I watched him, noting his small gestures, the way he lingered by the kitchen counter longer than necessary, or pretended to clean while I worked on securing my affairs. It was almost pathetic, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of pity. I also discovered strength in the mundane, cooking my own meals, handling bills, scheduling my treatment, actions that reminded me that I could survive independently. My body was weak in some ways, but my mind was sharper than ever. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, I sat by the window, the city lights reflecting off my glass of water. I thought about the life I wanted, not just to survive, but to thrive, to love myself fiercely, and to let no one, least of all him, take advantage of my vulnerability. The battle wasn't over. Cancer was still there, lurking, unpredictable. And he was still there, calculating, unsure. But I had something neither of them could touch, my agency. And that night, I slept with a sense of quiet triumph, knowing that the next moves were mine. Weeks passed, each one a battle on multiple fronts. The cancer treatments were brutal. Chemotherapy that left my body drained, my hair thinning, my skin pale. But they also reminded me every day of my mortality, of what was at stake. And at home, the tension was suffocating. He moved quietly, almost ghost-like, pretending that the past words hadn't fractured everything. But I didn't need to watch him closely to know he was waiting, calculating, unsure if I would crumble. One evening, I called a family meeting. Not just him, but our closest friends and a lawyer. I refused to meet his gaze beforehand, sitting with my back straight, my hands folded, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. When he walked in, dressed in his usual suit, confident in his facade, I felt nothing but clarity. "I'm going to say this once," I began, voice steady, carrying across the room. I was diagnosed with cancer, and I heard words that no spouse should ever say. I'm not here to negotiate your conscience. I'm here to protect myself. There was a murmur among the friends, some clutching their drinks, others exchanging shocked glances. He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. Don't try to talk your way out. The truth is already out. I laid out everything, the insurance policy, the lawyer's advice, my plan for medical care and finances. Each document I placed on the table was a declaration. I would not be a victim. I would not be manipulated. And then I looked at him directly. "You have a choice," I said. "You can either step up, be a partner, and respect me, or you can leave. But you will not touch my life, my body, my survival, or my legacy." His face turned pale. The confident man who had once tried to bargain with my mortality was gone. What remained was a man stripped of the illusion of control. I saw fear, shame, and a flicker of regret in his eyes, but that was not my concern anymore. My concern was me, my survival, my life. After the meeting, as the guests left and the house fell silent, I walked into the bedroom and looked in the mirror. I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back had scars, fatigue, and a body in flux, but her eyes blazed with defiance. She would survive. She would thrive. And anyone who doubted her would see just how unstoppable she could be. That night, I slept differently. Not in terror, not in despair, but with a sense of victory, the kind that doesn't require applause, only self-recognition. The fight was far from over, but I had already won the most important battle, reclaiming myself. The months that followed were some of the hardest I've ever faced. Chemotherapy left me exhausted, my body aching in ways I never imagined. There were mornings I couldn't get out of bed, Afternoons, I wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. But with each session, each lab result, each tiny victory over fatigue and nausea, I felt something else growing inside me, a fire, relentless and fierce. I had cut him out almost completely. His presence had become toxic, a reminder of betrayal I no longer had to tolerate. He would call, send messages, try to apologize, but I didn't respond. I had allies now, friends, family, my lawyer, people who reminded me of my worth when my own body felt weak. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, I walked through my neighborhood, the autumn air crisp against my skin, the leaves crunched beneath my feet, and for the first time in months, I felt lighter, freer. I smiled at neighbors, exchanged casual greetings, and for the first time, felt fully present in a world I had feared losing. A few weeks later, I got the news. The cancer was in remission. My body was still healing, but my spirit was unstoppable. I sat in my living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, and I thought about him, the man who had once calculated my death for insurance money. I felt no fear, no anger, only clarity. I was done. I had survived him, the disease, and the betrayal. I packed his things and left them on the porch, a message clear and unspoken. He would never again control my life, and as I watched him drive away, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph, not just over him, but over every circumstance that had tried to break me. That night I stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. I touched the scar on my arm from treatment and the hollow in my chest that had once held fear, and I whispered to myself, a vow and a celebration all at once. I am here. I am alive. I am whole. For the first time, I understood that survival isn't just about living through hardship. It's about reclaiming yourself, body and soul, and refusing to ever let anyone or anything diminish your worth again. And as I closed my eyes, I felt the peace of someone who had not just survived, but had truly won.